We've got a good, looks like a decent room now, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for your patience and your interest to this current session. What sort of design, material, and installation design, discounts, rebates, grants, and income tax incentives are available for the Marshall Fire rebuilding efforts? Okay, and tonight we do have Chris, and Chris, I hope I don't ruin your last name here. Emas?
Emas, that's
Emas.
okay.
All right, Chris Emas from Listen Up, and Joe Womack from Fireplace Warehouse, Robbie Schwartz from Boulder County, and he's a kind of a new home guide for Boulder County. My name is Sean Lamons. I'm with Mitsubishi Electric and doing heat pumps, and I'm sort of co-hosting or hosting tonight. So we have a few other folks listed on the speakers list. I'm not sure how many were able to make it, but Jewish Family Services, Catholic Archdiocese, and Community Foundation Boulder County. So if we have anybody on from those organizations, please do let us know, and we'll give you due time to speak about answering some of those questions. Speaking of questions, we do have a few kind of canned questions, if you will, but I think what I've found most helpful for most people are to really just open it up to the floor. When people have really poignant, important questions to be asked after all the time and all the resources that are, available out there, it's still really, really confusing to figure out a lot of this stuff. And so you're here because you have, you're seeking information, you probably have questions. So we want to honor those questions as best we can. So unless we have a, maybe we'll go around and let each of our speakers, I see Robbie's got his hand raised. Maybe we can go around and let each speaker share a little bit about what they're doing and a little bit of information, and then we'll get straight into questions. Since Robbie, you had your hand up, why don't you jump on in?
Yeah, thanks, Sean. I thought it might be worthwhile to start with a little overview of the rebuilding. Anyway, I thought it might be worthwhile to do a quick overview of the Rebuilding Better website, because it's just a great centralized resource for everybody. So I'm going to share my screen real quick and let everybody know. First, my name's Robbie Schwartz. My company's Built Tank Inc., and I'm also working with Boulder County as the New Homes Building Advisor. This is the rebuildingbetter.org website that the Boulder County Energy Smart team has put together. If you go to the lower left-hand corner in the toolkit here, it's set up in a variety of different chapters that you can get to in a variety of different ways. We're ultimately going to go to the rebates and incentives tab, but especially for those listening today, if you scroll down, you'll see I'm a homeowner. This is the homeowner side, and I'm a builder. Just because you're not a builder, please make sure you go to the I'm a builder side, because there's some valuable information that we're tending to send people to a lot there. But for the purposes of our conversation today, we're going to go to this chapter 3, rebates and incentives page. And on the rebates and incentives page, you can get to grants and rebates, equipment discounts, discounts with regards to solar, transportation, and induction cooking here. You can also come down to these squares and look at some of these discounts. And I'm just going to go to one of them, but I encourage you to go to a number of them. Under equipment discounts, discounts that are available for rebuilding, and then you can get into specific manufacturers that are offering discounts, such as, since Sean is here, we'll use Sean as an example here with Mitsubishi Electric. If you scroll down here, you'll see that there's a specific type of heat pump where you can get a 20% discount if you contact Sean, who's leading our discussion today. So again, there's just a wealth of information on this website, and I wanted to start. I thought it might be worthwhile anyway to start our conversation by looking at this website and ensuring that everybody's familiar with it and has the skills, in essence, the website to go to. So that's rebuildingbetter.org. I'll put that in the chat as well, but you really need to become familiar with it. Learn about all the discounts, because these are discounts that are above and beyond the Xcel Energy incentive programs and the state of Colorado electrification incentive program that you might be aware of as well. So I'll stop sharing and throw it back to you, Sean.
Great. Thanks, Robbie. A good, quick overview. And let's see, Chris, do you want to jump in and share a little bit about your background and additional thoughts?
Yeah, happy to. First of all, I want to start off, this is the first call that I've had. I've spoken with many Marshall Fire victims, but this is the first time I've been on one of the calls. And I just want to say that I'm sorry for everyone's loss. I can't even imagine what everyone is going through. I'm trying to do my best to understand it, but I just want to start off by saying I commend you and the process that you've been going through. I just can't imagine all the hurdles and everything that you've had to endure in this last year. Joe Womack and I are the chairs of the Metro Denver HBA Marshall Fire Task Force Vendors and Manufacturers Committee. Kind of a mouthful there. Our job has been really to sort of compile discounts similar to what Robbie was just talking about, but from really all of the HBA members in the Metro Denver and Boulder and Louisville properties or areas. And what I mean by that is not just discounts from Xcel or the government facilities, but rather the manufacturers that you may purchase when you're rebuilding a home. So it could be anything from windows and doors to heat pumps to roofing to televisions to fireplaces, you name it. It's essentially any manufacturer or vendor that is part of the Metro Denver HBA is trying to offer as much help and support financially as possible to the Marshall Fire victims. So Joe and I have been compiling that list and working with our HBA members. I'll go ahead and share my screen here real quick and just show you where you can see this. I guess you guys can let me know. Can you see the HBA website?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, good. So if you go to the HBA's website, this is the hbadenver.com. This is the Metro Denver Home Builders Association. I always got to spell that out. I say HBA so many times, people are like, well, what does that stand for? Home Builders Association. And on the front page, there is a tab here that's called out, says Marshall Fire Resources. I'm going to go ahead and select that. And it'll take you to a blog post that's got a ton of, really a wealth of information on it. But for the purposes of this call and to be somewhat brief, I'm going to go ahead and then click on the Marshall Fire vendor discount programs. And what that'll do is take you to a list that our committee has been compiling. Now it's everything from Xcel to manufacturers and vendors, as well as resellers. So in some cases, there may be discounts on here that are for a homeowner and some for a builder. Some of them may be an upfront, some of them may be a rebate, kind of all over the map here. Each one of them should have some a link on it with a documentation or an email with where you can reach out to get more information from that specific manufacturer. So in our case, of course, this one for some reason doesn't have my name on it. I thought it did earlier, but my company is Listen Up, and Listen Up has been a family-owned Colorado business for 50 years. We're right in the middle of where the Marshall Fire took place, from our Denver retail store to our Boulder retail store, and we have quite a few customers that have already reached out to us that are rebuilding homes. We're offering discounts not only off of labor, but direct discounts from our manufacturers like Sony and Denon and Marantz and so on. So just like we're doing this, you can find things from Furniture Row, from Fireplace Warehouse, Signature Stone, there's architect firms, Pella Windows, and so on. So there's a bunch of information here that I would encourage you to go through and check out. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I probably would have to defer to the vendor or the manufacturer about the specifics of their program, because I've just been compiling this for you. But I guess that was probably a really long-winded introduction. I wanted to get that out there and make sure everybody was aware of this website and knew what we were trying to do, and that we were here to answer any questions for you.
That's great, Chris. Really appreciate you putting that all together. I know that it takes a lot of extra time and thought and diligence to get it correct. I will say that Mitsubishi does have discounts too, and there might be some conflicting information between the some older language and some newer language on the Boulder County website. So we'll chat a little bit about updating the language on the HBA Metro Denver website as well. So that said, there's some great questions that are starting to pop in here, but I don't want to leave Joe without an opportunity to introduce himself. Joe, I see you. You're on mute. Do you want to take a little time to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed working with Chris. It's been a little bit like herding cats. Like he said, there were a little bit of a difference in manufacturers and have proof points. But we've made a lot of progress with people saying, how do we make it easy for these people going through this, incredibly tough scenario, especially all the folks that maybe are underinsured, and a lot of the manufacturers that we work with in fireplaces and grills and closet systems have all offered to say, hey, we'll come out and do we'll get on site, whatever the building changes that have occurred for folks. So a lot of the things you see on that website, and I think what you said, Sean, was great about getting the information to be consistent on the HBA website in Boulder County and the work that Robbie's doing. And I think it just hit me tonight. We need to do that with all the vendors, because there's no vendors that are on the HBA website that wouldn't just as soon be, involved with the work Robbie's doing. So I know you're on both and you need to sync those up, but we need to do it for all of them. But I think the main thing is, if people will go to the HBA website and reach out, there's a lot of people waiting to kind of help understand the scenario. I know when we got involved with this, we had no idea how many families in our company have suffered fire damage, complete loss, and those kind of things. And there's just few things, hardships in life that come along like this. So certainly us, and on behalf of the other manufacturers that Chris and I are working with, just reach out and we'll take you through the process as seamlessly with all these manufacturers as we can. And every day, different manufacturers that we represent and are reaching out to are coming along and making new offers. So it's constantly refreshing, almost quicker than we can update it on the websites.
Yeah, to pick up on that, Joe, what you say, both reach out and the kind of rate of refresh. Everybody that I know that's in the building industry right now is just, it's just crazy busy, and so much to keep track of, not only just in the pace of business, but also the pace of change, right? And seeing everything that they've got to sort of keep track of. So first and foremost, for the folks on the webinar here, and share with your friends, your family, your community members, if you're not hearing back from somebody that has expressed their interest to help, just keep trying. And I know it's challenging to hear yet another phone call, yet another email, but do keep trying, because we really want to be able to help and do our best work for you as you rebuild your home, rebuild your community. And everybody's backed up right now. So an extra effort, an extra phone call might make all the difference for sure. Again, more questions coming up here. So for the panel, do you have anything else that you want to share right now, or should we just kind of start taking some of these questions off the top?
Well, one of the questions I'll go ahead and share, I probably didn't do a good job of, because I dove right into what the committee's doing, but Listen Up is an audio video and integration retailer. So we sell everything from TVs and speakers to security systems to automated and manual window coverings to lighting solutions. So we work with custom home builders and semi-custom home builders and homeowners with respect to their audio, video, and integration or smart home needs.
Right. And Joe, it just says your name, doesn't say your company on your little icon there. So please share again where you're from.
Fireplace Warehouse. We're in, our design centers are in Fort Collins, Denver, and Colorado Springs. But we obviously a fire, grill, hearth products, outdoor fire tables and all that sort of thing. But we work with custom builders. We work with commercial builders, building senior living centers. Colorado Rockies just finished a project. So, but our team has already been exposed to this. Some of them have suffered through fire. And so as people reach out, we can certainly help them with whatever designs, if they're trying to emulate exactly the house they had or start from scratch and go in a different direction. And like I said, all the consulting and planning and things that are normally charged for are free. And we really don't have any real requirements. If you say you were victimized here or you're working with your family member or whatever, there's no red tape. We'll jump in and help.
Right. Great. And Rob, you talked about the work that you're doing and the role that you have with Boulder County. But if you just want to restate it for the room again.
Yeah, so I'm working with Boulder County as the new homes building advisor for the Marshall Fires. So primarily what I am doing is being an available resource to you, your builder, your architect, your design team, to help you successfully navigate the Xcel energy incentive programs. They're all building programs that require not only designing, but building your house to the specifics of that specific program or level of performance that you choose. And there seems to be a lot of questions about that. So don't hesitate to reach out and ask questions. I put my contact information in the chat, so you can call me directly or email me, and I will definitely get back to you.
Great. Thanks, Robbie. And again, my name is Sean Lamons from Mitsubishi Electric Trane HVAC. I'm a manufacturer rep for heat pumps. And in this climate, I primarily speak about cold climate heat pumps. So these are heat pumps that are capable of heating homes to the temperatures that we would see in any given year, down to the extreme temperatures. I saw -18 in Denver, and proper design, proper installation, proper application, the systems can handle that temperature without furnace backup, without electric resistance backup if you choose. It's just a matter of finding the right balance for your house and your application. With that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into some of the more specific questions. So do the rebates, this is from Nate early on in the meeting, do rebates also apply to houses that survive but had to be gutted, which involves an entire new HVAC, furnace, oven, I would imagine, etc.? I'll start off by saying, for us, absolutely yes. There's losses involved, and we're here. I think everybody on the call and the members of HBA Metro Denver that have expressed wanting to help. They're wanting to help, whether it is a full loss, partial loss, or smoke damage, or those kinds of scenarios too. Any additional thoughts on that, folks?
Yeah, unfortunately for the Xcel incentives, they're only for the rebuilding process. So if your house is not being completely rebuilt, you're not eligible for the Xcel incentives there. But as Sean said, there are other incentives that you could take advantage of.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think as far as the list that we've got on the HBA's website, the majority of those are for rebuilds, but there are remodels, and every one of them is probably a case by case. I know I can say that our company is working with anyone that's experienced loss to any degree, whether it be a remodel or smoke damage. Doesn't have to be a total loss to engage with us for a discount. So I think we just have to check with every one of those vendors specifically about those needs and those discounts.
Yeah, it's a great clarification. You're right. I mean, check with each company, each offer specifically. There's going to be unique details there for sure. All right. Hopefully, Nate, we answered that for you. And thanks everybody for muting yourselves too. If you do have a question, just unmute yourself. I don't have host control, so we haven't been able to specifically mute anybody, but we don't want to. It's an open forum, so please share if you have questions, or raise your hand maybe if you have that opportunity to raise your hand and we'll call on you. Conflicting info on a heat pump with small gas furnace is best. Sorry. There is conflicting info on if a heat pump with small gas furnace is best, or a cold climate heat pump seems to be safest to cover all bases and save the heat pump with the backup gas furnace. Again, I think that going forward, dual fuel is a very, very strong technology that's going to apply to most homes. However, if you're building new construction, or you have a relatively larger than average house, let's say, 6,000 square feet or something like that. And
recording in progress.
It's not that the equipment can't handle the load for the space. There are limitations on how large residential heat pumps can get. So if you had a house that was using a 100,000 BTU furnace, that and now the new house that is say 30 or 40 or 50% less energy intense, less energy loss, if you will, it's entirely possible you could do that whole house with a cold climate heat pump. But it really is, again, back to this case by case scenario, and that's what the builder, the architect, if there's an engineer involved, HVAC professional, etc. And those folks should be able to look diligently at those details and properly specify equipment for your application, for your needs. And sometimes backup is absolutely necessary and based on size and extreme conditions. And sometimes it's overspecified and it's not necessary. So hopefully that answers your question, Cindy. I don't know if it answers it clearly, but it just depends on the application. All right, let's see.
Robert's got a comment, I think.
Oh yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment that what Sean said is absolutely true, but there are some additional requirements if you are going for the Xcel Energy Star version 3.2 next generation. The next generation part means electrification. So if you're going for that incentive program, there are some additional requirements for the heat pump that you choose to heat and cool your house that you need to just ensure that your energy rater and builder are thinking about, so that they specify the correct equipment and you're not jeopardizing your ability to get the incentive payment there.
Yeah, great. Again, great clarification. There are different programs that you can apply to based on whether it be the code year or what your goals are, and the incentives that you're targeting, etc. So thanks, Robbie, for that. Very, very good point. And the HERS rater and energy rater, it can be a really key component to that professional team that you have, on the rebuild. Rest assured, the house that you end up with is going to be a very different envelope. It's gonna feel very different, energy wise, heat gain, heat loss wise, draftiness, etc. than what you might be used to. So it's just kind of a different game out there when it comes to a lot of those components. Nate asked a question, what about the Xcel rebates? Kind of a general ask. Robbie did kind of cover that early on. I don't know if you got that question answered, Nate, but back to Robbie, do you want to show that your website again, that highlights the Xcel incentives, and maybe to speak a little bit more to it?
Yeah, so the easiest way to get to it, if you're coming to the rebuildingbetter.org website, is to scroll down to I'm a Builder side and go to I'm a Builder. And then if you scroll down, there's a great spreadsheet you can look at, really your builder could look at to get an idea of the requirements for each of the programs. But here's where it talks about the incentives. The incentives, they're not additive, meaning that you choose one of these and you would get that amount if you're rebuilding your home. If somebody is buying a lot and rebuilding in the Marshall Fire area, they are also able to get an incentive, but you can see that the incentive amount is quite a bit lower for somebody who's buying a lot there. So there's also a little video here that talks about the incentives, and you can get more information there. And if you keep scrolling down, besides that spreadsheet that I spoke about, you can get to actual information about the programs with these links down here. Again, this gets more technical, so it's really links for the builder and the energy rater here. But if you need to get into that level of detail, it's all available on the rebuildingbetter.org website.
And Joe or Chris, do you want to share any additional kind of links or guidance back to the HBA Metro Denver?
No, I mean, it's in the chat. It's hbadenver.com, and then click on Marshall Fire Resources.
Perfect. All right. So continuing on it, also a big thanks to Robert August, who's helping us answer some of these questions in here. Really appreciate your efforts there, Robert. Now I know he's kind of balancing with some other activities as well. So thanks for that. Let's see. So here's another interesting question. Do induction cooktops, Cindy asks, do induction cooktops release dangerous levels of EMF radiation?
Jesus.
I can make a stab at that, but Robbie, you might know more about it than I do, actually.
My understanding is no. Rachel in the Energy Smart office is the expert, and you can send an email to Rachel and ask her for sure. But also, since the question came up, I wanted to plug a induction cooktop loaner program that the Energy Smart program in Boulder County is doing. So you can rent, or basically not rent, but you reserve an induction cooktop, and if you need pans to go with it, you can try it out for a week and really get an idea of what it's all about, and how quickly it boils water, and how well you can control the heat and all those things.
Yeah, one small clarification on that too is that induction cooktops don't work like a microwave. Like I think of a microwave working with electromagnetic radiation, EMF types of frequencies. Induction, instead of heating the water molecules in the food like in a microwave does, an induction cooktop starts to heat up the metal of the pan. So it is really, you could turn on the cooktop of a induction cooktop and you won't feel the heat. There's no heat coming at you. It's not like it's not the same as being in a microwave or anything like this, right? Or particles beaming across space, if you will. So that's,
you can
really
actually touch the cooktop when it's on and not burn yourself.
Yeah, you could boil water with a piece of paper between the pot and the stovetop. So it's just interacting with the ferrous material, the ferrous particles in the cookware. We'll keep rolling here. Let's see. More questions. Do you folks see any key questions you want to jump into?
I saw someone asking about the builders, and do the builders know about these discounts, and so they can guide us, and because the builders have potentially preferred vendors. There are a lot of custom builders in the Front Range, and it's difficult. how do I say this? Not all of them are HBA members, which is not a bad thing. It's just a challenge we have in communicating to every builder that's out there. If they're not aware of these programs, you are welcome to, as a homeowner, to direct the builder to the HBA. And then that way they can, try to get the discount or work with the vendors, participating vendors or participating partners through the HBA to achieve those discounts. There's no reason why we couldn't get those, but it's just a matter of communicating through the HBA to do that. I can tell you that Listen Up, I personally have spoken with about 24 families that have reached to us directly already. They've engaged with a builder, and I'm not sure how they, some have just found out through the HBA, some have found out through the builder, some have found out through the Slack channel, and they've contacted me, and then I've put them in touch with folks in our Boulder store to reach out. So I know that the word is getting out, but it's probably not getting out to every builder that's out there. Unfortunately, there's just so many builders in the Front Range.
Yeah, and
for
that's
sure.
true on the rebuildingbetter.org website list as well. The builders and homeowners that I've been talking to in general are not aware at all about the other discounts that are available besides the Excel incentive.
Okay.
There was still some water, we just had it in one.
Hi, Kat. Do you mind muting?
Okay, but don't start the video on the Zoom chat.
Are you talking to somebody?
No, it's Zoom.
What are you doing?
Hi, Kat. I don't know if you can hear us, but would you mind muting your mic?
Oh. Sorry.
That's all right. Thank you.
I know there was another one right below that said, at what point do we meet with someone at Listen Up or a company like us? You can't do it early enough. The 24 folks that we've met with have been in obviously planning stages, architectural stages. That's when we engage anyway, regardless of a disaster. We engage at the planning stages before there's a hole being dug. We want to have conversations about networks. We want to ask you about, do you work from home? Do you entertain outside? All the questions we need to know about if we need to put wires in your walls before your walls are buttoned up. We have an opportunity when we're building a new home to make some improvements, just like you would on a new car that you drive off the lot that's now got cell phone connectivity and a backup camera that the old car didn't have. This is the opportunity for us to make those adjustments, and we want to have those conversations with you really early on. So it's never too early to reach out to us and let us engage with your architect or your builder.
And Chris, I'm sorry to keep jumping in there, but you're such a great segue because that is so true with regards to all of the Excel incentive programs as well. You've got to start thinking about these things early, engage the builder, engage your architect, and do what we call an integrated design process, which means that you're bringing all of these groups together, including Chris and Listen Up, potentially, to talk about these things that you want in your home so that they can be actually designed into the home rather than trying to take a program and put it on top of a design. You're trying to mesh it all together at the beginning in the design phase.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100% agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll say, just to give you an analogy, everybody likes to throw at me, well, isn't everything wireless today? Why do we need wires? Well, it's true. Wireless is a solution, but it takes wires to make wireless work. And wireless is an afterthought. It's a remodel. It's a retrofit solution. If you have everything in your house on wireless, you're asking for trouble. So you don't move a printer around the house. You don't move a desktop computer around the house. You don't move a TV around the house. So there's lots of reasons why wires do matter. And to provide wireless, we have to run wires. So it's why if the walls are open and we're early, we can have these conversations. To Robbie's point, we don't want to think of this as an afterthought. We want to try to build this right from the beginning.
Yeah, and I'll pick up from that messaging as well. HVAC is a bit more kind of, buried in the home if you will, as well, but there are lots of control options. And with, modern technology, modern equipment, you might see multiple indoor units operating off of one outdoor unit. And so if you're in one part of your house and your husband or your wife asks to adjust the temperature, you could have that wireless capability to make that change somewhere else in the house, or you might be somewhere else entirely to have that access. But the HVAC technician is not an IT specialist, right? They are not someone that understands these details, I'm sure, like Chris's team. And I'm sure that, Joe comes across these things as well, that, the equipment that's being installed to do one particular job interfaces with the Wi-Fi in the house or the smart home in ways that they just never have before. And so you could very easily see dozens, if not 100 or more Wi-Fi enabled devices inside the house. And not all of those are necessarily need to be or should be wireless. So I don't know if that jives with your understanding or your perspective, Chris.
Yep, absolutely.
I just want to jump in. There was a question here, if I read it right. It's not just the 1,084 homes that were totally destroyed. It's any homes that have had damage, any homes that are in any kind of remodel, rebuild process as well. So I know we're emphasizing a lot of the fresh start rebuild stuff, but there's a lot of work, an equal amount of work being done on the remodel side and working with what we've got and what people are left with.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great reminder. Thanks, Joe. And when it comes to, I mean, if you have the structure that you have, whether or not it's new or it's revitalized, let's say, you might be looking at new windows, you might be looking at new insulation, you might be looking at new smart home capabilities, or moving an interior wall and adding a fireplace or appliances or what have you. All of these issues really do come up in a damaged home just as much as say a remodel, right? These are all questions to be thought about and asked. Let's see. So looking a little bit further down, so I want to pick up on something that Chris and Robbie also talked about, is the knowledge that's necessary for a lot of these technicians, a lot of these professionals. Training is key, whether it be your new training for the builder, new training for the technician, proper training on programs for your HERS rater or your anybody along the value chain, if you will, for this new home construction and deep retrofit or remodel. There's so much new information out there. And so, yourselves being on this call, they indicate that you're self-advocating for yourself, and there's so much to learn and you're trying to seek information. But if you come across a professional that the builder wants to work with because they have a relationship, I think that relationship is valuable. It's powerful between those two people to work together and solve for what you need. And if they just ask them, is there training, is there new information I can help you get, or this particular choice is important to me, is there something that the manufacturers can help support you with in this? There's a lot of content online. There's content at distributors, training centers. There's just a lot of resources out there to help the building professionals across the spectrum understand and implement on a lot of this new information and new details, because you want to give it the best chance to get it right the first time around. The number one issue for our warranties are based in technicians that they're installing something that they think is just like the thing they installed last year or 10 years ago. And if it's 1% different, 5% different, it's enough of a difference to make to turn a good outcome into a frustrating scenario that you have to deal with. So I don't know if that applies to the rest of you folks here, if you want to add on to that for training.
Yeah, it does. I just noticed, I don't mean to change the subject. I don't want to, but Ellen had her hand raised for a few minutes and I know she's got some questions in here. I didn't want to ignore her. Ellen
you
Baird.
bet. Go ahead. Whenever you're ready, Ellen, just let us know. Sorry if I missed the hand raise.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, yeah, I had put my question in the chat also. Earlier, probably last week, the HBA did a webinar on Age in Place with Louis Delaware and the Aging in Place Institute, and they had recommended Listen Up and other companies that work in home automation as technologies to reach out to for people building homes that they intend to age in place in. And it's a technology that's probably unfamiliar to many of us, what the sorts of things would be that you could include in your home here in the planning phase that would enable you to age in place in this new home that we rebuild with our new 30-year mortgage. And so if that's something that you guys could talk about, would be great as we look at, how we might take advantage of that incentive. Thank you.
Yeah, Ellen, thanks for the question. I'll just jump in really quick here because I've been working with Louis on some other projects. So we're also extremely familiar with this concept. We deploy this in many of our projects with new homes as well as retrofits. It could be anything from lighting solutions, lighting control, HVAC control, security. And it also has to do with the positioning of appliances, the positioning of outlets, security cameras. It really kind of covers every category in terms of smart home, but the focus of it is to make life easier as we get older. A great example of this that I certainly understand is, without getting too personal, is you get up in the middle of the night and you can't turn on any lights and you want to make your way to the restroom or the kitchen. And we can deploy systems that have smart sensors that will light or illuminate a pathway to either of those locations for you, and those will time out. So there's lots of things like that. Dishwashers raised up higher so they're not so low off the floor, outlets up higher off the floor. That's one of the things that we talk to customers about when we do a needs analysis with them. Again, whether it's a Marshall Fire a victim or someone that's come to us that's building a new home, is we go through all of these questions, ask them how long do they plan on living in the home, and so on. And that really lends us to lots of solutions out there that make aging in place possible for folks. So I guess the short answer is, if you're not working with us and you want to work, if you want to work with someone else or you want to work with us, get in touch with your technology provider like Listen Up and ask them about aging in place concepts and what do they do? Because that is something that we talk specifically about with our clients.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ellen.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Kristen Heightfield, hopefully I'm saying your last name correctly. You had some specific questions in there from a perspective as an architect and design build firm. So looking at the question is recommending gas furnace backup or electric backup. Do the Mitsubishi heat pumps work for multiple zones, and what size do you recommend? Again, a backup heat source can be useful, but it's not required with proper design. And so without going into great detail, it really has to do with the envelope that Robbie is intimately aware of, all the nuances of how a home is built: insulation, air sealing, windows, doors, etc. They all have values, as I'm sure you know, of how they hold on to and resist heat transfer. So those details go into what's called a load calculation. That load calculation determines how much heating or cooling has to be done. And it's a matter of selecting equipment that meets that need under the design conditions that are common, that are 99% of the time going to be met. And Robbie, I don't know if that number has changed at all. But it's basically in the ballpark of 0 degrees. Just for ease of conversation, we'll use that as a reference point. And so the amount of heat that has to be delivered to a house at 0 degrees determines how big of a system has to be provided to heat the home at 0 degrees. One key thing is that we've all lived, and I actually live in one myself. We've all lived in homes that have probably pretty substantially oversized equipment. And so as we start to look forward into the future and thinking about, okay, well, what do I want to buy? What do I need to get to take care of this house? Don't think about the fact that you had 100,000 BTU furnace. Think about the fact that you have a different envelope detail now. Maybe the windows were replaced on a damaged home. Maybe the insulation, some of the insulation was replaced. Maybe it's a tighter home now. Those loads are lower. And what used to be oversized for the older home is now drastically oversized for the newer home. So all these details weigh in. So when you ask the question, your manual J is calculated at 65,000 BTUs. We can double check that, make sure that those inputs seem reasonable. They don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be absolutely correct. They have to be reasonably correct. And that's one of the things that I've been doing with folks that are rebuilding and asking for some assistance, another set of eyes to review the details and make sure that those old rules of thumb, those old reference points are not being brought back into the new design, and you end up with a system that turns on and off, on and off, on and off like the old system does. The efficiency comes in smooth, low and slow operation of heating and cooling systems. And I'll leave it at that for now, but Chris and I will put my contact information in and we can chat a little bit more about those nuances. Let's see.
That would be great. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that.
Happy to help.
I've been telling my clients that we don't need to oversize it. I just trying to get the professional feedback from the expert to give them the right words. So.
Sure. Well, I hope I didn't get too wonky on it, but it is.
No, that is exactly what I was hoping to hear. So thank you.
You got it. Let's see. So discounts, ADUs. You had also asked Ellen had also asked a question about ADUs. From Mitsubishi's perspective, yeah, we would help. Any work that needs to be done really related to the Marshall Fire at the address that was impacted by the Marshall Fire. It sounds like that's kind of hit and miss on some of the other suppliers out there, and I don't want to throw any suppliers under the bus, but there was one particular security equipment company that had to back out for whatever reason, understandably, maybe supply chain or what have you, but they were not able to continue to follow through on initial offers. And I hope the panel doesn't mind me kind of taking that segue into supply chain, which is obviously a gorilla in the room right now, both in labor and products. So I think, and Robert August makes a point in the chat to make sure that as you move through this design process, that integrated design process, that you're ordering these items as early as possible. And I'll ask Joe and I'll ask Chris, is that the same for your products and features?
Joe, I'll let you go.
I was just reading Janet's question in the chat. We're getting some really good questions. Chris, would you go first? I'm looking at this gas fireplace emergency question.
No problem. So with regards to supply chain, it's hit or miss with every product that we sell, whether it's a Sony TV or it's a Lutron lighting module or a 6-inch can for a light. We're kind of all over the map with things. I would say it's nowhere near as bad as it was a year and a half ago. Some things still take a few months to get. Some things are readily available. We warehouse and stock things in Denver. So I sort of fall back on the early and often conversations so that our designers are working with your architect and your builder and yourself to identify the solutions you would like to have in your home so that we can start looking for lead times on those products and then let you know. What we don't want to do is say, okay, great, we've had all these conversations and now here's the bad news. This isn't available for a year and a half. We want to have that kind of conversation and early on.
Yeah, I would just jump in and say we're seeing a lot of changes in the supply chain, a lot of improvements. We spent the last couple of years getting a lot of, well, you can have the fireplace, but the components you actually need to finish your install, don't know when those are coming and all those things. And even though we stock about $3 million worth of inventory, a lot of times it's the piece parts and those nagging things, but we're seeing it improve literally month by month as we get toward the end of 2022. And then I just want to answer Janet's question real quick about emergency backup. In the hearth industry, we really work with about 11 different regulatory bodies. On top of that, each municipality happens to be called the authority having jurisdiction. So that's another level of looking at these things like, can you have a second power source, emergency backup? I know I lived in Texas where we lost 270 lives when the electric grid went out last year. And so it's very thoughtful to think, what is your emergency backup? Are you allowed to have a pilot light? That's just going to depend. A lot of that we're going to have to kind of understand what municipality has jurisdiction and what their rules are. Generally, the energy commission or the energy programs in the country right now do not want standing pilot lights. So it is all electronic ignition, typically, certainly on any fireplace that would have been purchased in the last few years. So the manually lit pilot is really very much a conversation we have to have in your particular municipality.
I'll piggyback on that, Joe. So Joe, are there battery backed spark igniters that are available?
There are. Almost every fireplace sold today has a battery backup. We really caution people with that because do you have enough batteries, and don't become dependent on it, or especially people in the mountains who have maybe people coming and going, Airbnbs and things like that. But it's really meant to be like any emergency backup, a backup. So you don't want to run them very long on battery.
Right. And so it really gets back to, if you've got power in the house and you want that supplemental heat, you want the ambience that you're paying for, right? One of the reasons when you buy a fireplace is for the aesthetic, the enjoyment of to complement your home. And that can also be used as a backup system, or a supplemental heat source for sure.
Right.
I've got one of my favorite projects I'm working on right now is up in Leadville, and we are designing a heat pump to handle, I would say, 99.5% of the conditions that they'll see in Leadville. And if there's a problem, the heat pump will call for help from the sealed combustion fireplace, as long as they've got power in the house. But they're putting in, I believe they're going to be putting in a battery eventually as well, solar and all those things. But those are all choices to be made. But if there was a backup ignition source or power to the house and it just went to -25 and the system wasn't able to keep up, at least they've got, you know, not only the aesthetics, but also the emergency heat, supplemental heat solution there with that heat source in the house. Does that fair, Joe? Does that fit with some of the applications?
Absolutely. And I think when Chris was describing earlier, the key word there is application. So really understanding what you mentioned, ambiance, and a fast growing segment is electric fireplaces. But if you're needing heat, that's kind of a limited solution there. So really understanding the application and what we're trying to accomplish is the best way to find the best solution.
Right. Great. Good deal.
Hey, Sean, Charlotte's asking
Sir.
about a list of members based on where they build.
Yeah, I don't know that I know the full answer to that. I know our installers, but
I can say that probably Charlotte, the best, Charlotte, yeah, you're still on the call. The best place to go to start would be the HBA's website. That's the Home Builders Association for Metro Denver. That'll list the members and it'll list the disciplines. So if it's a builder, it'll list the builders. It'll list everybody from architects to folks like us to windows and doors. It's a great resource, the HBA's website.
great. Good deal. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so looking at looks like we've kind of reached the end of the list here. Let's what are you all doing? So Chris, you've talked about your team being, you've already had lots of conversations with folks coming to you and asking about, you know, well, how do I do this and what's the right solution? What's the right option? Joe, where can people come to you to find what you've got, and how does that work? How do they get your services? How do they get those discounts?
Certainly, I'm on the website, Joe at FPWHS, Fireplace Warehouse, F Frank, P Paul, W Water, H House, S Sam. And then we've got a team, depending if people want to go to our Fort Collins location or Denver location to actually see it. But we're glad to jump in with anybody who reaches out. And as we've kind of been the theme on this call, the earlier and the more coordinated the planning, the better the outcome and the happier the homeowner.
Yeah, that's back to early and often, as Chris mentioned. It's the same for me. If you have a builder, an HVAC contractor, or a HERS rater, or someone that's looking at options on the heating system, reach out to me. I will put my contact information in the chat. I haven't done that yet, sorry. But reach out to me, and I just want to do a quick pass on how they're approaching the heat pump solution. So there were questions on multi-zones and all sorts of stuff. There's, you know, it just depends. And then I will pass along my not stamp of approval, that's not the right term, that's what came to mind, but I will pass that along to our distributors, and then our discount gets applied to the price that our distributors pay. And we want to do that as early as we can because of the supply chain questions. Challenges are happening right now. You know, back to the supply chain commentary, we're finding that it's a bit of whack-a-mole, right? So when one component it has a shortage and then that gets resolved, it puts pressure on another part of these complex systems. And they are international challenges. It's raw materials, it's labor, it's still distribution in terms of, you know, getting pieces and parts to where they need to go, and labor in certain areas of the world that are still not back to full capacity. And it's also competition for stockpiling, if you will, right? So companies are competing to get copper and plastics, resins, all sorts of stuff, circuit boards, anything that's smart. And this might come into Chris's arena, anything that's kind of smart and modulating in this new world that we live in, beyond just cars and heat pumps. It's all being affected by certain capabilities or resources that are available, even when it comes to the Ukraine, the Russia's war in Ukraine. There's certain materials that come out of those regions that are critical for the rest of the world to have, and those are under pressure right now as well. All right, so there was Janet asked about Excel rebates. When do you register for an Excel rebate? Rob, you want to take that one?
Yeah, generally speaking, your builder or energy rater would want to register to begin the pre-registration part at the same time that you're permitting for your building to be built. Again, on the rebuildingbetter.org website, there's the Excel pre-registration form. And then shortly, we haven't had the first home actually complete yet, but sometime between now and when that happens, there'll be an additional form that you'll actually submit to receive the money from Excel at that time. But there is the pre-registration form on the website right now. And just a quick thing on that, I had a discussion with somebody today who didn't understand that there's more than the form that actually has to be turned into Excel. There's some information that your energy rater, if you're doing any of the programs up to Passive House, there's information that your energy rater will have to include with that submittal. And then if they are going for Passive House, there's something called the Passive House Planning Package, which is just documentation about the house and how it's going to comply with the program that needs to be submitted to Excel as well.
Sorry, I was typing my contact information in. You caught me off guard there, Robbie. Yeah, early and often ask the professionals that you're working with about the ability to meet those requirements. Even when it comes to stuff for me, if that order for that product has already been placed, we're kind of past that opportunity to get that 20% discount. And again, it's as a manufacturer, our price to the distributors, that's where we have control. We don't have control over the distributors. We are asking them to participate if they can, when they can. We're asking the contractors to participate if they can and when they can, but there's no guarantee. So some of the numbers that have been kind of passed around in the past of 50% off of list price, by the way, that is list price, and the other, folks that deal with list price and discounts and that kind of thing will hopefully understand this statement. List price is a number in a book. It's not necessarily a number that somebody's going to pay. And so it becomes a reference amount that has to do with how much different tiers of pricing and distribution and markup and all that stuff happens. So it's really kind of the wrong metric to use unless they have a very, very short value chain and actually have control over list pricing, can maintain that. We don't, unfortunately. We work with distributors that are doing a lot of service to receive, manage, store, distribute large pieces of equipment. So we're really very dependent on those folks to do their hard work, but we don't have control over the pricing. So
just a quick thing, I put the link to that pre-registration download in the chat there. This will take you to the main page. You'll just need to scroll down past the incentives to see where that is, where you can download the form. You muted yourself, Sean.
We're at just past 8 o'clock. Given our slow start, I think we're a little past the full hour, but I hope this has been helpful, and I'm willing to stay on a little bit longer if there are more questions for folks, but would love to give your evening back to you if we're all set. I'll wait around, and anybody else that wants to keep asking, go for it.
I think we should double your pay and make you the permanent moderator.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to do it. It's a joy to have the opportunity. So thanks for the invitation. Thanks to Robert August, who his chair remains empty at the moment, but because I know he had another thing going on, but thanks for the comment, Joe. All right. Whoever needs to drop off, go ahead and drop off. I don't have control over the recording, so I guess we'll just be recording you know, an empty broadcast at some point. I'm sure Connie's back in there. And by the way, Connie, thanks for getting this arrangement reconfigured and getting us recording. And there were several comments and requests to get a recording out. So I'm sure they will be following up with that as soon as they can. And hopefully, Connie, you feel better soon. I don't know if you can hear us if you're around. But any other questions? Let's see. Thanks for time. All good. All good.
When's the next one? Do you want to kind of share with everybody when we're doing the next seminar?
There's actually one tomorrow.
There is one tomorrow.
that
Yeah.
is on.
It's, although I will say that on the HBA website, it says so today was Monday, October 11th. Or
Well,
sorry,
today was
10th.
the 10th. It was a misprint. It showed Monday
Right.
and Tuesday, both the 11th. Tomorrow will actually be the right date.
Right. So you've got Louis Delaware, Zach Swank, Caleb Etzold, Alyssa Vogan, and Robbie Schwartz. Again, Robbie, you're a busy man.
I'm taking Zach's spot. actually.
Got it. And by the way, I got to give Robbie another plug. He's got a great web podcast called Buildcast. So his company name is Build Tank, which kind of harkens back to a think tank. And his podcast is called Buildcast. And if you do a search for Buildcast or Build Tank podcast or B Tank, well, I want to give the right one. btankinc.com. Is that right, Robbie?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. 23 different sessions in there, and you got some heavy hitters in there, man. That's you've got some great folks, great kind of some national reach. EBA is a fantastic organization. I'm hoping to see EBA and HBAs and Housing Innovation Alliance groups really start to work more and more together as they try to solve the same challenges from different perspectives with housing and affordability, et cetera. And lots of good building science if you want to geek out, and just some good reflections on different topics. So check that one out.
Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. All right. Any other questions? Any other questions? Let's see. Looks like we'll give it another minute or so. Otherwise, we'll probably drop off. Nice. Got the post in there, Robbie.
Yeah, since you did that.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe's got his contact information in there. Louis' contact is in there from Robert. Louis Living in Place Institute. And Chris, your contact's in there as well. Great. All right. Well, I think we'll call it. Thank you all for joining. Best wishes, and have a great week. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.